Okay, this is Orlando Wilson. What I want to talk about in this video is something to do with more of the business side of the close protection business. And again, as I say in other videos, the close protection business is a business. It's not a hobby, it's not a game, it's a business. This is something a lot of people forget. What I want to talk about is expenses. So, who's paying your expenses when you're working? And I've heard a lot of people say, oh, the client will pay, etc., etc. Well, all this needs to be worked out beforehand, before the job actually starts. I know some people that go silly on expenses. And the trouble is, you got to remember, a lot of clients, even though they got money, they don't want to spend the money on you. They want to spend the money on themselves. So even though they might be uber rich, they're not going to be too happy if you run up the bills on expenses. Let me give you a couple of stories, and I got a personal story I'll throw in at the end. I know one job in London that was screwed up because all the drivers that were working, and this was at a very nice hotel, central London, the drivers that were working on the job decided that they were going to be that they needed to be fed and watered, etc. So they were using the hotel restaurant or the hotel bar, ordering food, ordering drinks, and billing it to the client's room. They found out which room the client was in, so they just told the hotel staff to put it on the client's bill. That didn't go down too well at the end of the job, and even though the management that was doing the security side of things knew about it, they didn't say anything to the client, and that caused a big stink. I remember talking about that on the job, and somebody said to me, well, you don't want to snitch, you don't want to do this, etc. You don't want to snitch on the drivers. And it's like, well, this is going to end up fucking it up for everybody. You know what it did? It caused issues. So, you know what? You're there to look after the client and look after the client's assets. If there are people on the job that are scamming, and the drivers were scamming, then it needs to be reported, because else it's going to come down on you. And again, it can damage your reputation. I know of one job in Miami that took place a long time ago, many years ago, at the Mandarin Oriental. Nice hotel, top hotel, down on Brickell. And what happened, the security guys, I know two of the people that were involved in this, decided, they said yes, they could use room service. Instead of ordering maybe a sandwich and a pot of coffee, went for the steak and lobster. Again, at the end of the job, the clients was like, why have we got an astronomical room service bill? Well, you got a big bill because your security's been eating and drinking as much as they could. But again, those guys, I don't think it was the first time they'd been in such an environment, but things went to the head. Things went to the head, and they decided to run up the client's bill without asking anybody. So this is where, if you're working from hotels, if you're traveling with the client, there needs to be, you need to work out who's paying for food, who's paying for drink, and come to some type of arrangement. I've been on many of a job where if you're working for hotels, you're doing corridor work, etc., then it's, okay, you can have a pot of coffee or maybe a sandwich, that's it. And again, to me, that's reasonable. If you can't go the whole night or whole day without eating and drinking excessively, you got a problem. So if I even these days, if I was doing a 12-hour job, even though I don't do that type of stuff myself these days, and somebody said to me, yeah, you can have a pot of coffee, all right, thanks very much, there's plenty, I don't need much else. So expenses need to be worked out. Generally, I don't bill for expenses, I add them into the fee. I work out what's going to be required and add them in. That way, I'm not going to be arguing about expenses after the job or during the job. I'll tell you a personal story. This happened to me years and years ago when I was first getting into stuff. This must have been a long time ago, when I first went self-employed. And I'd done some CP work over the summer, and I forget which year this must be, long time ago. I must have been like 24, 25. So it's a long time ago. And again, you need to fill in when you're not doing CP work, or you haven't got any Gucci work. So events, functions, etc. And one of the clients I was freelancing for, one of the companies, called me up, and they had a gig working cinemas, providing security at cinemas in North London because they had some incidents. And the incident was they had little kiddie gangs going in there. I'm not going to talk about the ethnicity. Little gangs going in there, and one guy got hurt bad because they whipped the shit out of him with their belt buckles. Messed him up. So there's a big stink. Now the cinemas worked out, this chain of cinemas worked out, they needed security. So they called this company up. So I generally working me or one or two guys working per cinema, etc. I was working one place, again, North London, Northwest London, if I remember right. And late at night, I live central London, so there's no point having a car. I generally jump the bus, jump the subway if it's still going, jump the tube, etc. And one of the managers at this place said to me, duty manager, said, well, jump in a taxi, we'll pay. Our staff go home by taxi, so jump in the taxi. And I said, you sure? I said, yes. Okay, so I jumped in the taxi. Done it once, he was there again, done it again, done it again, done it a few times. Next thing I know, I get the company calling me up saying, why are you running up a taxi bill? I said, well, the manager said so. He said he didn't. Because the top manager questioned him, and I take it he bottled it and said they're not paying why security jumping in the taxi paid for that was for the cinema staff. So there was a stink over that. And again, this is where in some ways it was my fault, because it may be okay saying once if I had the money, well, I had the money, could have paid my percentage, but the next day I should have phoned up the company and saying, look, is this kosher or what? Is this okay, or what's the problem? But I didn't. I believed the duty manager, but the duty manager wasn't the overall manager. So there's a little bit of stink over that. So that taught me then to clarify things, especially where anything to do with expenses is involved, or anything to do with money. Funny thing is, that company called me up after that, and again, another cinema job way out East London, if I remember right. And I said to him, I said, look, I don't want any bullshit over this. It's like, again, what's the timings, etc. And it was late, so I said, you know what, I live in central London, it'll take me forever to get back, I'm not interested. Oh, we'll send a driver, one of our surveillance guys will come pick you up, whatever. And I ended up walking off that job because we ended up, I think the cinema was cleared out, so we should have been waiting for all the management to get out. And I was, again, by myself, I found up the driver, and he's like, well, I'm in Birmingham or something, I'll be there in like a few hours. It's like, well, fuck you. You know what, and we're closing up in 30 minutes. What, you want me to wait here till like 4 o'clock in the morning? So I ended up walking off that job because, I mean, I had bullshit with that company anyway. So I was like, thank you very much. I left, and the manager was like, where are you going? I said, you know what, you've hired a bunch of fucking idiots. Here's my business card. If you want to work direct, give me a call. I ended up jumping a taxi. I didn't get paid for the job, and I had a taxi bill. But those days, well, I'd do the same today. You know what I mean? I've got no time for idiots. And again, I look upon those years when I was out working, I think you have to put the work in to understand how to manage people in the close protection business, security business in general. Because once you've been there and done it, and once you've had to deal with these problems, you can understand things from your guys' perspectives, the people out there's working perspectives. So this way you can put procedures in place or understand the potential issues and make sure those issues are covered before they actually happen. And this is the trouble. I think that company were ex-cops, ex-Met guys, so they lived in La La Land anyway. So, yes. So, expenses. Always make sure, if you're quoting for a job, if you're doing a job, you always question expenses. If you're working for a company, a client, always work to clarify what expenses you're entitled to, etc. And again, if people offer you anything, always question it. Question it with the client, question it with the company, question it with the management. Because again, shit rolls downhill. And again, it's it can make you look a little bit, it can cause a, I'd say, difficult situation, a stupid situation, which can be avoided just by asking a few questions. So just a little bit of advice and my perspective on a few things. So follow me along on social media, check out my books on Amazon. I prefer LinkedIn or X. So follow us along. I've got a lot more videos coming up, and we should be rerunning our courses towards the end of 2024. I've been taking a break because I've been too busy. So in the meantime, be good, stay safe, and as always, try to stay out of trouble.